everybody, welcome to our first video lesson for English. My name is Tamsin, but you can call me Tammy, much easier to say. And this is our first lesson on everyday English. Now, when we talk about everyday English, what does it mean? For the most part, everyday English is the language that we use to communicate with people that we are familiar with, people from our own cities or countries. So for example, since it's an everyday English language that you're using in an English country, you would not use the type of language that you learn in the classroom. You'd rather use what you see on television. I'm sure that most of you have watched a lot of Hollywood TV series, and you would notice that when people speak to each other, the way they speak is not classroom perfect. I mean, we hear things like gonna instead of going to, wanna instead of want to. You even hear people say to you, hello lovey, hello sweetie, when as a matter of fact, that's not what you're taught in your English classroom. So for this session, that's what we're going to look at. We're also going to take a look at how people communicate on social media. Things like Facebook and Twitter rarely need words or language, but they still use it. How? Finally, we're going to recap on some vocabulary, some idioms and phrasal verbs that are very common in the English language and which you may find useful when you're chatting to people from time to time. So the first thing that we're looking at here is social media. How do people communicate with each other on social media? There are many platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But how do we get the message? We first start with something like memes. Now, what are memes? Memes are very cleverly crafted images that come from familiar sources. If you're a fan of a particular movie series, I don't know, like Lord of the Rings, then you would definitely recognize Sean Bean holding his hand like this and the phrase in bold white letters, "One does not just." And of course, whatever comes after that is what makes the image hilarious. It also speaks to a lot of cultural norms. Now, these kinds of things are common across language barriers, not just English. It's just that it's much more common in the English language, especially because they come from common television series and movies. I'm sure that in your native countries, for example, Brazil, Portugal, France, Italy, you would see your own specific meme that people from other English-speaking countries, or any other country for that matter, would not be able to understand very well. Which is why we also have other generic memes. These are images of women or men in a certain type of costume or dress and a statement being made about them. But now we're talking about English here, not any other language. So, what else can we say about social media use of English language? Usually messages are short, no more than 5 or 6 words, unless of course you want to write a full essay on Facebook, which I don't recommend. And sometimes we use words that have a multitude of meanings. The phrases can either be ironic, or they can be sarcastic, or they can be symbolic. We find words that are synonymous to each other being used very cleverly, which just shows that people have a very interesting sense of wit. We call those witticisms. So, for example, if you're having a bad day, how would you talk about it on a profile update or even on a newsfeed update? Would you give an entire paragraph explaining details? No, not unless you're one of those people who love to write about their lives online. If you want to keep it short, however, bad day, need a drink. 5 words. Or If all my days were like these, I'd hate to imagine what my worst days are like. Again, you are just using your wit. These are just statements coming from Facebook or Twitter. They're not statements that you would actually need to explain. It's just a short little small image into your day, and you're just using a minimal amount of words for it. Now, web platforms like Instagram don't really use words. They use images. But still, the English language plays a role in such a situation. Again, this is an everyday thing. You would see it every single time you turn on your phone and you go onto an online platform. So the image from Instagram, for example, you would see a person doing something fun, like having a drink, or perhaps chatting and laughing with friends. Or you would just see someone relaxing with their family, and you would see one word, maybe two, if you're lucky, three. So, for example, day out, fun with friends, getting crazy. And that's just a few of many examples that you would find on an online platform. Why do we use this, though? And what role does English play in such platforms? Well, first of all, it's the easiest way to communicate an idea. That's essentially what's happening on an online platform. Secondly, you want everyone to understand you, so you make it as simple as possible. Although the English language can be very complex, I mean, we've got the biggest vocabulary in the world. If you compare it to any other language, English is complex. But we can simplify it as much as possible. Even if people want to understand more, we start with the basics. Now, we can also look at how we use English in public. That's the next point. How does English work in public? When you're speaking to someone at the store, do you tell them, "Excuse me, I don't mean to bother you, but could you please tell me how much this is?" That's really long-winded, you know? We don't need to speak that much if we're going to speak about something we want to buy. And these days, people don't even find it necessary to talk. Online shopping takes all of that away from us. But let's say we do go into a public place, we go into a store, and we want to find out how much something costs. Would we say, "Excuse me, sorry, but could you tell me how much that is? That's a bit long." How about, "How much is this?" So you would take the item in your hands, you would show it to the person, and you'd ask, "How much?" Or, "How much is this?" Now be very careful, because your tone of voice is important in such situations. If you're speaking in public and you're just using 1, 2, or 3 words, sometimes you can be seen as rude or abrupt. So be very, very, very careful. So if I take a book, for example, right? I got the book right in front of me. And I tell you, "How much?" Excuse me? Rather, "How much is this?" Do you notice the difference between the two? While the first one seems more abrupt and unfriendly, the second is much nicer, and you can buy your book without any problems. So, this leads me to the other situations where English is actually quite common and used much simpler than in the classroom. So, how do you talk when you talk to your friends? "Hello, how are you? Did you have a great weekend? Could you please tell me about that enormous bag that you've got on your shoulder?" Why are you using such strange, odd words? When we speak to people that we're close to, it's not necessary to be extremely polite or to use extremely correct English. You can speak to them in any which way you think is normal and natural. Natural speech usually involves idiomatic phrases or idioms and phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are usually words that are synonymous to the actual big word, or they help you to say things in a nicer way. So, for example, if you have lost someone dear to you, do you say that the person has died or that the person has passed away? You certainly don't say died, because that's a bit too harsh, that's a bit too much. So passed away, which is a phrasal verb, is the best phrase to use. And this is much more preferable in everyday speech than to use the word died. That's just too much for many people. So, back to the topic. How do you speak to people in general? Well, first of all, you certainly don't be too polite. You can say things like, "Hey, how are you?" Or, "Hey, how's it going?" That's very common. We don't say other things like, "What did you do today?" Like that, like, "What are you up to?" That's the phrasing we use. So, if you are talking to somebody, you're seeing them for the first time today, this person is your friend, this person is someone you know very well, this person may be a relative, you would definitely say, "Hey, how are you?" "Hey, how's it going?" "Hi, what's up?" "Hey, what are you up to?" Many students have some difficulty with these phrases, especially because it's something they're not used to in their language. I mean, one student couldn't understand when another English student said, "Peace out." What does peace out mean? Well, that's a phrase for let everything go well with you, or have a great time, or enjoy the rest of your day. But we just say, peace out. Simple. And the English use these phrases. Where does it come from? Again, it comes from a lot of cultural influence, usually from the media, from videos, from movies, from TV series, and we apply it as such. So that's the general everyday English speaking that we're used to. For this part of the lesson now, we're going to look at more of these things in detail. So I will be talking to you about other things that you would find on the online platforms, other things that you can experience when you're out and about in public areas, and also other things that you may finally get used to when you're in the company of your English-speaking friends. So watch this space. For the next 40 minutes or so, we will be having a bit of fun with this. So Facebook has quite a few interesting posts besides memes and things like that. I mean, we see chain messages, we see those very common, "If I don't talk to you, please delete me from your friend list" kind of a message. And then you also get these "you know" messages, which I find personally very hilarious. The "you know" message I'm talking about is the message that usually starts with "you know." So for example, you know somebody's lying when they start sneezing. Or you know that your boss thinks you did a great job when he says, "Fantastic." All of these phrases start with the words "you know" because it's directing you to a scenario that you may be familiar with. So if you know the scenario from a previous life experience, then of course, you know. So you know somebody's got something to hide when they're smiling at you for too long. Yeah, I had a fart. I'm sorry. But yes, you know. That's the most common that I've seen so far. Another one that is really interesting is when people describe a fashion or a style. Then they use words or phrases like "that's hot" or "on fleek" or even "yes, queen." Now, why would they use those phrases? Are they even English? Indeed, they mimic the English language. That's not to say that they're really English, but they mimic English. Now, what I mean when I say mimic is that it looks English, but it's far too slang to be recognized as English. So the phrase "that's hot," for example, oh, the dress she's wearing is really hot. We're not talking about the temperature. We're talking about how sexually appealing the clothes is that the person is wearing. We can even talk about the person's appearance. So if you look at me, I look pretty nice. But what about a supermodel like Gisele Bündchen? What about the clothes she's wearing? She would be considered hot. Not in terms of temperature, like you're feeling very hot, but you look very good. You look really attractive. So, hot. And that's the type of terminology we would use online, on social media. Then the next one, on fleek. Again, it mimics the English language. Technically, it's a blend of languages together, but we see it online. On fleek, which means in style or en vogue, as they say in French. It is the term we use to describe something that is really, really attractive. You know, it's absolutely stylish. It's a style that I would like to adopt. It is on fleek. So, for example, my boy got his shoes on fleek. Or, if I had to just say it normally, my boy's got his shoes on fleek. When we look at a phrase like that, the person is complimenting his friend's shoes. My boy, which means his friend, I know him very well, so he's my boy, has got his shoes, talking about his shoes, or cleats, on fleek, which means they look very good, they look very stylish, he looks good in them. Again, my boy's got his shoes on fleek. Some people even talk about their eyebrows being on fleek. Yeah, I don't know how that works, but apparently that's a good thing. Then finally, we have the phrase, yes, queen. And I know that a lot of LGBTQ communities really relate to this because everybody's a queen. But if you're talking about someone who really stands out, yeah, no, then they're not just a queen. You would have to say, yes, queen, for them because you are applauding them. They're doing a fantastic job of showing off their attractiveness. So if they do something spectacular, yes, queen! That's how the online statements look. People are celebrating and cheering their achievement. So let's say a woman is standing up for herself, or a man is doing something extraordinary that nobody has done before. Yes, king just doesn't do it for anybody. For some reason, the phrase yes, king doesn't work well online, but yes, queen definitely does. Now, you will notice that in that phrase, we don't say yes, Y-E-S. We don't say that. Remember, these phrases mimic the English language. Instead, what you see is yes, Y-A-S, yes. Sometimes that A is extended and it's said longer. So, yes, right? Why do we say it like that? It is a way to expel air from your mouth, sure. But it also shows how appreciative you are of someone's achievements. So no, yes! No, too boring. Yes! Because it's louder. Hence the word yes becoming yes. Again, it's not English. It's more slang. Now, what other parts of social media really confuse students is witticisms or short phrases that seem very difficult to understand. They use a lot of figurative speech. They use a lot of idioms. For example, this lady's like a fish out of water. Why are we talking about fish and... Sorry, I'm lost. Let me repeat that. This lady is like a fish out of water. If you are still confused, an image is provided. When you combine the statement with the image, you get the idea. So let me put this into your mind. Imagine for a second. You see an image of a woman who looks extremely uncomfortable. She is maybe overdressed or underdressed at a certain event or around a certain crowd of people, and you say, this woman's like a fish out of water. What it means is, she doesn't fit in. She's very uncomfortable. A fish out of water is not comfortable because that poor fish doesn't know how to breathe out of water. The same can be said about a woman who's overdressed, underdressed, or inappropriate for a certain situation. She is like a fish out of water. She is not comfortable. She does not feel like she belongs in that area. So, of course, she looks like a mess and probably feels like a mess. Other witticisms that you'd find online as well. I'm trying to remember a good one. Remember the one I told you about earlier? The meme with Sean Bean in his role in Lord of the Rings, where he says, one does not just... There are so many Sean Bean memes, but what makes them more impressive is that they're so English, because he does play the role of an Englishman quite well in many of his movies. And of course also in, what's that thing? Game of Thrones? Yep, he definitely was one of the main faces of that TV series, and as such represents everything witty about it. Now, his face and his witticisms are used throughout social media just to make it more funny. So if we were talking about a particular game that's popular with many people, let's say we look at the very popular mobile game, Call Me Emperor. It's very popular in Europe and Asia right now. And it's a game where people can actually buy certain types of characters. Yes, you have to use money. And you play a game where you pretend to be an emperor. One of my friends who plays this game put up a meme which said, one does not just recruit a legendary emperor, because you need to use too many books and coins for that emperor to be powerful. Now, people of the game would understand exactly what the heck that meme is about, but the problem with memes is that not everyone will understand it. It's not within their context. So if you ever come across a meme, it looks really interesting, but you don't know what the heck is going on, and you're English, or you speak very good English, don't worry about it. It's very common. It happens. And it's not because your English is bad that you don't understand the meme. Usually it's just got to do with the context or the situation. It's not available for you, so that meme would not make sense. Even now, I'm still trying to figure out this WAP video from Nicki Minaj. I don't understand why there are memes about it. What's it about? No clue. Even though the meme is in English, I don't get what's going on. Then we also find that we can't use very big words in our online statuses. I mean, imagine seeing the word inevitable, vital, unenviable. Yeah, no, you already lost me at the first part of the word in. So how do we say it in another way that's much simpler, much easier for people to follow? Well, let's start with the word inevitable. If you're going to use such a word, or such a meaning, wouldn't it be better to try, it's going to happen anyway, whether you like it or not? Or, it will happen in the future. It doesn't matter what else will happen. That's going to happen. We have to simplify it, make it shorter. Say that something is bound to happen. rather than it is inevitable. Because in essence, the word inevitable means it's going to happen whether you like it or not. Vital. What's another word for vital that's much easier to understand? How about important? If you use the word essential, I mean, that's okay, but this is Facebook. All right? If you want to be whole dramatic about it, why don't you say it's a matter of life and death? But seriously, important is the best word that you can use instead of vital. We need to be more relaxed when we're online, and using very high level terminology that is so advanced you might as well be the professor of English at Oxford. It's just not going to serve a point, because how many people do you find on Facebook that would understand that kind of language? Very few. Unenviable. Again, it's a very, very difficult word. Unenviable. Look at how long that is. If you're on social media, you don't need it. You would rather say, oh, I don't like that, or I don't want that. So, my brother found himself in the unenviable position of working as a secretary for the governor. So in other words, your brother didn't like his job. Yeah. Then why don't you just say that? Much simpler than unenviable. The context is the key in any social media setting. So it's not the vocabulary as much as what you're saying and how you're saying it. In the end, what is social media to us? It is our communication to the rest of the world. There are more than 50 million people online. Do you really want to confuse them? So social media just encourages simplifying what you say, making it everyday accessible. Right? So with everyday English and common phrases, remember, keep it simple on Facebook, keep it simple on Twitter. Don't go overboard. Short messages, memes, little clever phrases and words. Nothing that is so intense that you feel like your ears are about to fall off. Now, what has it been like for you when you're in public? I mean, how do you communicate with people in public? For many ESL students, it's not the best situation to use English in public, especially when they don't know what to say or how to say it. I once had a situation where a student asked me, how do I ask someone for directions if my GPS isn't working? Or if I can't use my phone? Or how do I talk to someone if I want to ask them for information about something? It's very simple how to ask, and it's also very complicated how to ask. But let's work with this, shall we? So, when we ask for information, or we're asking for someone to help us out with some kind of information, the best way to start is by looking at the 4 common WH questions. How, why, where, when. We can even say what time if we don't want to use when. So, for people who are in public and they're trying to find information about a certain place, the WH question is the king here. So, excuse me, where can I find X building? I'm sorry, what time does X start? Sorry, how far do I have to go to get to X? Or, excuse me, when does the start? Another one. Sorry, how much does cost? There are so many things we can do with the WH word. Now, in this part of the lesson, we're talking about speaking in public. We're going to look at different components of the public arena. So we're going to look at being out and about with your friends, getting around. Yes, getting around. means to walk around. And we're going to be looking at being at the mall, being at the cinema, being at any public place. All right? Also, we're going to look at moments when you're asking for information. This is especially important because of the next lesson that you're going to look at, where we look at travel. You'll be asking for information there too. And I know a lot of people are telling me, hey, we're doing a lot of these things online. We don't really need to do it in person. Yeah, but in case you do, this would be really important for you. So, starting on getting around. When you're in a new city or place and you are lost, how do you ask for information to get around? The WH question is a very good tool for this. So, you would ask, excuse me, where is the nearest restaurant? Where is the nearest bar? You would use the phrase, where is the, and then the rest of the sentence follows. If we are looking for where is the nearest, because you're not sure what this place is, you've never been here before, you don't know the names of specific areas, where is the nearest or where is the closest is a good question to ask. So, I'm sorry, where is the nearest bar? Excuse me, where is the closest school? You're trying to find these areas. You're trying to look for a specific place, but you don't know the name, so you say, or you ask, where is the nearest? Where is the closest? Because people are so reliant on their GPSs nowadays, it's not going to be very easy for someone with all of their knowledge to tell you, okay, go left, go right. But you will find that there are people who can help you. Now, in another case, if you are looking for information about a certain event, when or what time are good phrases to use, or good WH phrases to use when you're asking about information. So if I want to know when the night market is going to start and where it's going to be held, how would I ask about it? Excuse me, but where can I find the night market? Oh, the night market is at the waterfront. The night market is at Cavendish Square. The night market is at Green Market Square. And so it goes on. What time does the night market start? When does the night market start? Let me repeat that. Where is the night market? When does the night market start? What time does the night market start? Now, many people also wonder, what is the difference between when and what time? When can refer to anything. It can refer to date. It can refer to month. It can refer to year. But time, it's looking specifically at the hour. So what time? 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. What hour are we looking at here? Okay? When you're asking for information, that's the thing right there. Or maybe you want to find out about how things work. So, how do I get there, for example? Using the WH word, how, helps you to ask about a manner of doing things. So, how do I eat this? I mean, I see a plate of lasagna in front of me, but maybe I'm Chinese and I'm used to using chopsticks. How do I eat a plate of lasagna? So, how do I eat this? Or maybe, how do I get in here? Well, you have to buy a ticket. That's how you get in there. So, if you want to know how you get into a concert or into a building, I'm sorry, I want to go into this building. How do I get in there? Oh, you buy your tickets here and then you go in. I use the word how. How do I do this? Okay? Because you're asking for information about how you can do something. Another very important word is when we speak about where. So, I would like to find a place. Where is this place? We can, of course, use where in conjunction with how. So, Where is the Gardens Plaza? How do I get there? Or where is the nearest hotel? How do I get there? You can see the two of them working well together. Where is, how do I? Where is, how do I? Just continue using them together. Works like a charm. Now, another thing that happens in public is when we are in a restaurant, we're in a mall, we're eating out with friends somewhere, and maybe we want to order something or buy something. How do we go about doing that? How do we go about making a purchase? We ask, "Excuse me, how much is this? Excuse me, what is in this plate? Or what is in this meal?" You'd like to know what you're eating and how much you're going to pay for it, right? So, I'm sorry, but can you tell me what is in this meal? What is this? I mean, if someone had to tell me, you're going to have pasta con pesce. Look, I'm not Italian, so I don't know what pasta con pesce is, but I would ask you, excuse me, but what is in a pasta con pesce? It's pasta, and it comes with fish or seafood. So of course you go, aha, this is fish. I know exactly what I'm eating now. It's the same when you're in an English country. I mean, you're going to ask. You're not an English speaker, and you don't know what you're looking at. You want that information. You're in public. So, I'm sorry, but what is in this meal? Or what is included in this meal? Easy as you please. Your waiter will tell you, okay, that's fish, that's pasta, that's onions, that's tomatoes, and you get the drift. Okay, this is what I'm eating. How much is it? How much does it cost? So how much do you have to pay for this? Again, you're asking for information. This is a public place. And they will tell you, okay, this is the price. You can see the price in the menu. That's how much it costs. It's not a stupid question. You're in a public place. That's what you're asking for. How about if you're in a clothing store? Now, in a clothing store, the most common verb to use is not what or where or when or why, but rather the verb do or even have. So let's say you want to buy a dress, or maybe you're interested in buying a bangle. Do you have this in gold? I only see silver bangles. Or, have you got this in gold? I only see silver bangles. What's the difference? Do you have you got, what's the difference? There isn't a difference except that there are different ways of saying it, but the meaning is still the same. So do you have this bangle in gold? Have you got this bangle in gold? It's the same meaning. It's just a different way of saying it. Another one that's very common. You see a dress that you like, but the size and the color is, it's not something you're used to. You're not really attracted to that size or that color. You're trying to find another size or color. How would you ask for that? I'm sorry, have you got this in red? I'm sorry, but do you have this in a large? Let me repeat that again. I'm sorry, do you have this in red? I'm sorry, but have you got this in a large? Okay. So if you, at the end of the day, when you finally find the dress size and the color that you want, now you need to know how it looks on you. How do you actually ask for that? The phrase that pays, try it on. So, I'm sorry, I'd like to try this on. Where can I do that? I'd like to try this on. Your assistant at a shop would tell you, oh, you can go to the dressing room over there. You can try it on in the dressing room. and you can see if it fits. So, once you find the dress or the type of clothing or the suit, whatever you want, that you like, where can I try it on? Where can I try it on? Okay? So let's just recap. I mean, this is all about public speaking. You're in public, you're asking people for information, you're asking them for directions. You are trying to ask for a certain type of meal and you want to know what's in the meal. You want to know how much it costs. You're in a shopping mall. You are in a shop where they're selling clothes and you want to find out how much it costs, if they have it in a certain color, if they have it in a certain size, and if you can try it on. I mean, there are so many things that you will be talking about in public. So, where can I find this place? When does it start? What time does it start? What is in this meal? How much does it cost? Where is this place? How do I get there? Do you have this in X or Y? Have you got this in X or Y? Where can I try this on? May I try this on? Please remember these phrases for whenever you need to find information or if you need help in public. I promise you the best place to find help anywhere in public is when you're in a mall. Just go to the information section. They've got that big eye over there. And then you can ask someone to help you get around. Well, that's when you want to get around. The last thing that we're going to look at in this lesson is the language structures that we were talking about earlier throughout the lesson. We were talking about idioms and we were talking about phrasal verbs. So let's look at a few of them. Remember earlier when I mentioned that fish out of the water comment? If you say that someone is like a fish out of water, it means that they're uncomfortable in a certain area or situation, or maybe they don't suit this area or situation. So my friend Annie is very shy. No matter where she goes, she's like a fish out of water. Or I never could get used to these fancy dress parties. I'm like a fish out of water. It means that I am not comfortable in this area. I simply don't like it. Or in my case, I'm not very good at working in front of a camera. I'm like a fish out of water, which is actually true, despite what you're seeing. So, fish out of water is the idiom that describes someone who is in an uncomfortable position or place. They simply do not fit in. There we go. The next one that we're looking at, I'm sure you're very familiar with this phrase, and in English we've actually taken it a step further. If something is really expensive, we use the following phrases. We say to pay through the nose. Okay, you're paying a lot of money to pay through the nose. But we also use phrases like paying an arm and a leg. All right, you pay an arm and a leg. But now things have become even more expensive than paying through the nose or paying an arm and a leg. And now you're paying a lung and a kidney. One person went so far as to say you're paying a spleen. But that's a bit of an exaggeration. So if you're talking about something that is really expensive, you are paying an arm and a leg. Right? Or a lung and a kidney. Now, we would say it in such a way, for example, I'm not paying through the nose for this meal. I can make it at home. In other words, I'm not going to pay so much money for something that I'm about to eat when I can cook the same thing at home for a much cheaper price. So, I am not paying through the nose for this meal. No way. Another one. Oh, that dress must have cost an arm and a leg. It's so pretty. Yeah, it was quite expensive. It definitely did cost an arm and a leg. So we would say, that dress must have cost an arm and a leg. Finally, that trip to space thing that Elon Musk has got going costs a lung and a kidney. Oh my gosh, it's really expensive. A lung and a kidney. Now, you're probably wondering why people would say lung and kidney. I mean, what's the difference between arm and leg and lung and kidney? Why is lung and kidney more expensive? Well, just like an arm and a leg, a lung and a kidney is a part of a human body. And it's really vital. It's really important for the human body to work. If you have lost a lung or a kidney, you can still survive with one of each. But it's not sufficient, You can survive with it, but you can't do more with it. So it just goes to show how important it is if both a lung and kidney is gone. Then there's also the fact that a lung and a kidney, as well as many other organs in the human body, is very valuable. So imagine someone actually buying organs from a human body, someone actually selling organs from a human body. This brings up the concept of a lung and a kidney, just like an arm and a leg. Back in the day, your arm or your leg was very valuable to a scientist. Now, your lungs and your kidneys and your heart is pretty much valuable to everybody who has a debilitating disease and needs a replacement organ very quickly. So, this is why, in English, you now find the idiom, a lung and a kidney. That's how much you have to pay if you're paying for something very expensive. All right. Now, the next word that we've got is rather very common. It's a phrase, not a word, I beg your pardon. But this phrase is when we speak about something in such a way that we understand why we do it. So, for example, worth. Is it worth? So, is it worth traveling all the way to another country to learn a new language? Yes, it is. But because we've got the internet, people don't see the worth in it as much as they did before. I could be wrong. It's really worth studying a new language if you can get a better job. Again, we see that phrase. Worth is actually assessing the value. It is evaluating a value of something that you're doing or wanting to do. Okay? So, is it really worth my time to study a new language? Well, yes, it is. Because you're going to benefit a lot from studying this language, especially if it involves your job, especially if you're supposed to do work. Then yes, indeed, it is worth your time. So, it is worth it. Okay? And then finally, to count for something. To count for something. No, we're not literally talking about counting our fingers and toes. We're not talking about counting our digits. Not at all. When we say that something counts for something, we're saying that there was a really good reason why we had to do it. So, in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, the president actually put us all in quarantine because he believed that the quarantine counted towards the fight against COVID-19, the fight against an international virus. Also, if you do something and you do it well, or even if you do it and you only do it a little well, the effort that you make is a contribution towards a bigger thing. In such cases, we would say, oh yeah, well, what you did has to count for something. Because you're contributing towards something bigger. The fact that I'm making a video online because my students can't go to school right now, has to count for something. In this case, counting for helping people learn, even when they're not in a place where they can learn. So, count for something to contribute towards something. Not literally counting on your fingers and toes. Not literally counting on a calculator. Just adding, contributing to something bigger and better. Those are the idioms. Now let's get on to the phrasal verbs. Like I told you earlier on in this video, phrasal verbs are very common because we use it in everyday English, we use it in everyday speech, and we communicate as much as possible. Now, the first one that I'd like to look at is pop in, or pop in to visit. Yes, I know, it sounds a lot like popcorn. Why do I feel hungry? Well, pop in means to visit someone for a short time. So I popped in to visit. I popped into my cousin's house for a few minutes. I popped in to say hello. Yeah, I know it sounds like that favorite song of mine from Stevie Wonder, I Just Called to Say I Love You. But it's not quite like that. When you pop in, you're just in and out of a place very, very quickly. So I just pop in. As you can see with a phrasal verb, we are using a verb, pop, and its component, in. And the word in is the same as at, to, from. Okay? They're always used with verbs to make a phrasal verb. So prepositions are just as important as verbs in a phrasal verb. Let me give you another example. Take a look. When do we use take a look? As a matter of fact, why are we using two verbs in a phrasal verb? Doesn't make sense. So, I have a problem here. Oh, really? Let me take a look. Why can't I just say, let me look? Well, you are actually trying to solve the problem. And when you are trying to solve the problem with someone, it's better to say, let me take a look. It's like saying, let me have a try. Let me try to do this. So you're not looking, literally like looking with your eyes. You're also trying to assess the problem, evaluate the problem, and see what you can do to solve the problem. Okay? So let me take a look. Let me see what I can do. Right? It doesn't suggest that you're doing something very quickly. It just suggests that you're willing to try and help. So take a look. Get around. Again, this is a word that I've used in this video. Get around. Now, get around means different things for different contexts. For example, if you know a lot of people, or if you know a lot of information, then you've been getting around. So, how do you know so much about the Bermuda Triangle? Oh, I get around. You get around? You mean you go to a lot of places? You talk to a lot of people? Yeah, I get around. Or, wow, how do you have so many contacts? How do you know so many famous people? I get around. So, you go to many different places? Really? That's how you get around? Precisely. So, when you talk about someone who has a lot of good friends or a lot of connections with people in very important positions, or someone who knows a lot, who has a lot of information about something, or who seems to be very knowledgeable. Sorry, I bit my tongue. Then we say that you get around, or they get around. Right. Try it out versus try it on. Now, when you try something out, it means you're trying an experience that you normally would not do, or you've never done this kind of thing before. So, the first time I tried something out that I'd never done before was when I was 16. I went on a roller coaster. Needless to say, I never want to go on a roller coaster again. It was too scary. Then we also have try it on. And I've mentioned this before in the video when we were looking at trying on different clothes. This is a very common phrasal verb. Please use it when you're talking about clothes you're trying to wear. Okay? It can also be used figuratively, but we will look at that in another video. It's too much for one video to talk about all the meanings of try it on. Then the last one, hang out with and spend the day with. Now, hang out with and spend the day with, they mean the same thing. They mean to be with someone for an entire day doing things together. So, Josie said that she's hanging out with her friends today means the same as Josie said she's spending the day with her friends today. It means the same. However, unlike the phrase hang out, we can also use spend the day for other contexts when you're speaking about doing something. For example, I'm spending the day making videos. It's really cold, but I'm making videos. I'm spending the day doing that. I'm using my time, which is essentially what spend the day means. Now, we're in the last stretch, guys. So before this video ends, I would just like to thank you all for being part of this project and also for watching the video. It was really great to have a pair of eyes, or pairs of eyes. Wait, how many people is watching? Should I ask? Thanks for joining this English lesson. It's been great having you guys. I look forward to seeing you in video 2, where we will be looking at travel and how to arrange a trip to a different country. Let's hope we can actually do that in the near future. Have a great one, guys. See you all soon. Bye-bye.